Alright, so this summer I used a lower resolution photo and did the superimposing of the death mask. I used the same app, I just did this just now today, but this is using the higher resolution photo, and there are a lot of details like the eyelashes and a scar that I can see on his face I couldn't really see very well before. And so basically you just create different layers, and I didn't manipulate this in any way. Really, this photo is as is. I did change it a little bit more to just black and white instead of the sepia tone. Both of them are. So you can see more details. That's the only thing I've done. And just changing the size of the death mask, but not changing dimensions of the death mask. And you can kind of see, if I just pause right here, again, as I pointed out, you don't even really see a crease up here below it. You see a crease lower on the death mask. So that means he has a more fully hooded eyelid. And if you look on my website, I'm going to give a link to, I've looked at different angles of the death mask. You can look at it from this side and another side, you can tell. But on this eye, it's more sunken in on the death mask. It's the same way in this man's photograph. Okay. If I, and then you notice this wrinkle. It's just kind of some basic things you can see. They really match up. They both have kind of this similar prominent wrinkle coming down that side. And just if I went like this and saw the edge of the nose, does that match up? Well, it does. If I rewound that again, you know, here's the shape of the lips. So again, you can see this curve. I've said in other videos, you can tell he's pursing his lips. So his lips are a little bit fuller, less full. But this shape, it just falls perfectly into place, the Cupid's bow. And like there's the edge of his mouth. Okay. It matches. And when that side of his mouth kind of comes up, this other side kind of goes down. Let's see if that matches. So the left side I really noticed. On the death mask, it really just sort of a lopsided look right there. And so these are some of the prominent features there. Oh, well, that matches up perfectly, right? The chin, there's the cleft, just sort of that curve in his chin. On a scannel photograph, they give him a really recessed chin, and on the death mask and on this guy, you can tell. It matches up, and even like the shadow in the chin matches up super well. And this curve right here, where the death mask, as far as it goes back, it looks like that goes perfectly to where his hairline is, because he has his receding hairline. I can tell in the death mask it's concave right there because he fell on his head and it really damaged the left side of his face. So that's why there's less on that side, because he fell on his left side. All right. I'll just wind this back up a little bit again and just show you just a few other things. Even you can see he has sort of very high cheekbones. You can tell that. And look at that line. So you can see there's that cheekbone. Even though you can't see a ton of detail on the left side of his face, you can see all this. That cheekbone falls into place. And really what I did, I can go down to these most minute wrinkles, and so many of them match up perfectly. Like this. Look at that shadow. That wrinkle right there. And so I have a little bit higher resolution. I mean, it just looks like the death mask is just super damaged. He just had a really damaged face, is what I'm thinking, because even those the most random wrinkles seem to really match up on the death mask, how uneven his skin was. And he worked on his farm his entire life. Like the week that he died, he's talking about, you know, equipment breaking on his farm as he's plowing the fields. He was always working. He always worked for his own food and everything. You can definitely tell, you know, I could look at this some more, but this photograph, it does, the seller, I don't talk a lot about, but I'll go ahead and just say a little bit about that. I mean, this is the same photograph you see on a website called Juvenile Instructor. The people on there aren't the most professional. They call this a daguerreotype. If you know anything about daguerreotypes, you would know this is not a daguerreotype at all. I'm going to take that down now and pull up a higher resolution copy that I have. And I definitely own this. This is my hand holding the photograph. That is my bedding in my room. Like, I have it. But on the Juvenile Instructor, they what I found there, and I have talked to him, this photograph does come from a Smith family photo album, and that's what really intrigued me this summer. Was I compared this to the death mask for the first time, and then just looking at it, I could see, after analyzing the Spiritist photograph. See, I was analyzing the two. I thought they kind of looked the same. I'm like, huh. And then the thought came to me, Debbie, they're really the same if you flip them around, and then you could see really hooded eyelid, long eyelashes, less hooded eyelid. Right side of his mouth comes up, left side comes down. You can kind of see this curve showing. The noses look really different, but the ears stuck out a lot. Part their hair in the same place. But this hair is kind of coming more forward, and you can tell it's coming forward on that side too. But yeah, it came from a Smith family photo album, and this is the back of the photo this is my scan. It was taken in Newark, Illinois, and so Joseph Smith, you know, photography was introduced to the United States in 1839. Daguerreotypists were the big thing. Lucian Foster, actually, I talk about on my website, he did a lot of paper saltwater prints. So this is a saltwater print photo. I go into that and explain that and how that did exist. How ever since the 1830s, they could reprint paper photographs, and that's kind of their unique thing, the thing that they kind of had on daguerreotypes. Daguerreotypes had to be in glass. They get damaged super easily. But as far as those main features, let's look at the paintings here. I think this was done from the daguerreotype. I think it was this daguerreotype, but not at this angle. I think it was flipped around this way. And so some of these features, you can tell the hair is a little bit more combed forward on the left side instead of the right. Yeah, so I won't analyze the Spiritist too much. I kind of gonna leave that up to them, but I definitely think they have that daguerreotype that this was based on, but then there are some features that this guy kind of looks older than that. But yeah, here's that line that you really see in the death mask in this photo, that you really see that. These lines on the face, you really notice these curves that you really see there. Those high cheekbones. One side of the mouth comes up, and the other side kind of more goes down. And then some critiques have been like the hair color. This hair looks just as dark as this. And on my website, there's a scholarly article written in the 1960s that this guy just compiled anything anyone ever said about Joseph Smith, and I think there's like 6, or you just put in Control F and find out how many times people say brown hair. It's like 5 or 6 times. Just almost every quote. No one ever says he has platinum blonde hair. Okay, they just didn't. But apparently one woman cut off a platinum blonde piece, so everyone's been so convinced his hair is super, super light. But as far as the ears, I mean, there are a couple, this drawing, you can kind of tell the ears, they stick out. They just really kind of do. And there's also a cartoonist that did a newspaper drawing of Joseph Smith, where they emphasize the ears, make them really big. So people did say that, but people weren't that shallow back then as they are today. And you know, people are freaking out about the hairline. It's just obvious from the death mask that he had a receding hairline, and it looks just as receded. You can actually tell the death mask is concave right about there. He fell on his head and on the left side. But if I pull this forward, you can see these eyelashes are crazy, crazy long. And this side they come up, this side they kind of go down. You can see that on the painting too, and these are things that people said that I quote, and you'll find in that article. They're really talking about the longest eyelashes. I mean, blue eyes. And going to how this vest matches a vest that is an Ensign article of one that he wore. And this clothing is 1840s. But the reason I find this really, intriguing, for one, for me personally, I am distantly, but I'm not like directly related to Joseph Smith, but there is some relation there. And so, I mean, being slightly related, you are a little bit more intrigued about some of these facial features and things. But the other thing is really how you can tell that this is a really good guy. And people just have been really throwing him under the bus and just saying he's, well, basically a sexual predator, that he was just targeting women. But this is actually, studying this and doing all this analysis has got me really into finding out what physically he went through, that I could see the differences between the Spiritualist photo and him, finding out a lot of church history. And actually there were a lot of pretty bad men in Nauvoo in the 1840s that he went to great lengths to protect women from. And actually these sealings that you hear about, if you're Mormon, these just sealings only, it was him teaching something spiritual that was completely non-sexual. So if people were sealed just for eternity, it's not marriage, it's not your typical marriage unless it's sealed for time. And then you're married, But there was, you talk about everything coming out in the news today. This guy, J.C. Bennett, was everyone and more that's coming out in the news, and all the horrible stuff in Hollywood. And really, after Joseph Smith found out what this guy was doing and how many women he was targeting, spiritual wifery was really basically prostitution, and that was going on. And he got alone in a room with J.C. Bennett, and the guy tried to kill himself after that. They say Joseph Smith could really be really kind and sweet, but if he needed to reprimand someone, he could be a bear. And I really believe that came out, and I think he really was mad that J.C. Bennett was exploiting, sexually abusing women, raping women, and doing horrible, horrible things. I don't think someone that was also a sexual predator would excommunicate all these men involved with spiritual wifery and then teaching them about something that's totally not sexual. Yeah, you can tell in his face he's a good guy. And that picture of Hiram that I have found, and I don't understand why there's no controversy. People are just saying this is Hiram. It's the same thing. You can tell from his face he's a good guy. And so when they were jailed, there's an account when they were jailed in Missouri and accused of murdering, and it was never, there was no evidence whatsoever that they murdered anyone in in Missouri, when they were jailed in Liberty. But they were set to be executed. And one person that defended said, just look at Hiram and Joseph's face. Just look at them. You can tell these are good men. And I think the same thing. I mean, when I contacted the church history department, they kind of wanted me to just, okay, so you're going to donate this and just give this to us. And I'm like, no. I did pay some money for it. My intent is not to make money or sell this to anyone. I don't know what I'll do with it. But I think having this out there, and if I could prove that, and so people can see, just proving this is him, I think that is a goal. I think it's definitely possible, and everything that I've found out just points to this being him. I don't think it's that far away. I don't think it's going to take me that long to prove this. And the one of Hiram, it seems like a lot of people just know it's him. It's gonna be interesting when I find out that full story. I think they're just judging him because he has thinner looking eyebrows that are probably drawn on after the fact, because it probably came out looking like he didn't have any eyebrows. I go into that in another video. But I think this is a good guy. I definitely believe he was a prophet. I believe he was a good person. And everything I'm finding out is that he definitely was an advocate for women. He created the Relief Society. It was still the largest women's organization. He did teach plural marriage. It did bring a lot of good people into the world and a lot of missionaries, and the gospel spread, and that was the only intent with that. And it was not all men, and he definitely excommunicated men at the time and throughout history that he didn't think should have been living it. They were not good men, and that's just the truth.